I think that is probably one of the main reasons why Putin is at least pretending that he's willing to negotiate, because the deep strikes into Russian territory, particularly targeting like the oil depots, the oil refineries, they're actually doing significant damage to the Russian oil industry.
With peace between Ukraine and Russia looking increasingly difficult to achieve, despite the rhetoric from the White House, Kyiv's effectiveness in repelling the Russian invasion is being hampered on multiple fronts. The Wall Street Journal have been reporting that the Pentagon has blocked Ukraine from using US-made Army tactical missile systems as they try and get a peace deal. Potentially as well, more damaging, is the prospect that Ukraine's internet, delivered via satellite using Starlink, could soon be switched off. The service is being paid for by Poland, but a political row there could see them withdrawing support. Last week, Europe was speaking with one voice in support of Ukraine. Remember that? Where's that momentum and that unity gone? Joining us now is Sovsun, who is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament for the Holos Party. Ina, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Can we start with Starlink? How serious is the risk to Ukraine's battlefield communications if access to Starlink is cut?
Well, I'm not sure to what extent the British audience can understand how Starlinks work, but basically Starlink became the basis of communication for the Ukrainian military on the front lines. When they're using Starlink, they cannot be located by the Russians. That is why Starlinks are so critically important, so that they don't have to use the general network, but they rather connect through the Starlink. And it has been a great advantage to the Ukrainian military from the very beginning of the war. And that was initially a gift from now very difficult person to judge. That would be Elon Musk. But he has granted those at the beginning, and we have been using those. And recently, literally 2 days ago, the Polish Parliament has passed a bill which limits aid to Ukraine. And that typically touches upon the Ukrainian immigrants who are living in Poland. But it appears that it also covers the issue of Poland paying for the use of the Starlink by the Ukrainian military. So that is why right now it seems to be that Poland will not be able to pay for the Starlink. So that potentially can be solved in other ways. Some other country can potentially pay for that. Worst case scenario, we can pay for that ourselves. But that is, of course, very damaging if there will be an interruption of service, even for one day, because then it will mean that the Ukrainian military will either not have to use internet at all, which is, of course, not possible in this war, or they will have to use the general network, and then they can be easily located by the Russians. So it's a serious situation which can be solved, but of course it's very it's scary on the tactical level. But as you rightly pointed out, it's also even more scary on the strategic level, because it speaks to the unity of Europe when facing Russian aggression, and that is another level of this problem.
Why do you think Poland's taken that action? Is it for them to say we've got to redirect our resources to best protect our own country rather than the continent as a whole?
The smartest way for Poland to protect their own country is to protect Ukraine right now, because they can't really, they wouldn't be able to withstand this level of pressure that we're withstanding right now. And we all understand that if, and that's of course a big if, but it's not going to happen, but if Russia had overtaken Ukraine in 2022, it would have moved into Poland. So it's in Poland's best interest to make sure that Ukraine is able to fight back. But apparently not everybody in Poland understands that. And the recently elected president, President Nawrocki, is holding complicated views about Ukraine. He has been promoting complicated historical narratives, pointing out to the difficulties Ukrainians and Polish had in the past. He has been spreading hatred towards Ukrainians. So unfortunately, those views were not prevailing, but apparently they were strong enough that they led to his election. So now I think Poland itself will have to find the balance between the pro-Ukrainian government and pro-Ukrainian parliament, and a president who has, different views about Ukraine.
It's hurdles from your allies that Ukraine are having to grapple with. The other one is the Wall Street Journal reporting that the Pentagon has now for months been quietly blocking Ukraine's use of these US-supplied missiles that would be able to hit targets deep inside Russia. What has gone wrong there, which is why the Pentagon have said or have effectively engineered a situation where you can't use those weapons?
Well, the good part of that is that Ukrainians have already built lots of other types of weapons ourselves, which we can use for deep strikes inside Russia. And you can see them happening, and Russians can see them happening. And I think that is probably one of the main reasons why Putin is at least pretending that he's willing to negotiate, because the deep strikes into Russian territory, particularly targeting like the oil depots, the oil refineries, they're actually doing significant damage to the Russian oil industry. So we do have our own weapons, but of course we would be much more effective in doing damage to the Russian economy and Russian military if we were allowed to use the American missiles. Well, we have seen that the issue of deep strikes into Russia has been a problem for the US in general. One can easily say that it's a problem for this administration, but the truth is that the previous administration was not willing to allow for Ukrainians to use American weapons for deep strikes into Russia either. And I think that there is a deep-seated belief that this can lead to the escalation of the war. But the reality is that not a single war can be won without doing damage to the enemy. We can never prevail in this war unless if we are only fighting on our own territory. Because if we're fighting only on our own territory, we only do damage to ourselves, right? But this has been a long, ongoing story. And I think as of right now, it's become clear it's definitely not working. The recent tweet, not the tweet, the post on Truth Social by Trump actually points out to that. So there is sort of differences of opinions between what is being said publicly and what is happening in reality. We'll see how things will go. But worst case scenario, we will continue to do that using the weapons that we are producing ourselves.
And you suggested that Putin was pretending to negotiate. Where are we? I mean, a week ago today, there was a lot of optimism, or at least there was momentum, because we had all the European leaders around the table with Donald Trump, and that seemed to be a good step forward. Donald Trump was saying, right, next step, will there be a meeting between Zelensky himself and President Putin? What do you think is happening in terms of organising, in reality, that trilateral meeting?
Well, we are acting up based on this very basic belief and understanding of the situation that Putin's goals have never changed. He still wants to destroy Ukraine, and he still wants to disrupt the West altogether. So that has never changed. His will has not changed. If it changed, he could have stopped this war yesterday, right? The question is if he is in a situation where he is forced to negotiate. And that a week ago, there was a belief that maybe he is in a situation where he will have to negotiate. But I think as of right now, we have heard several statements by his cronies saying that President Zelensky is illegitimate. That is the line that they have been using for quite some time now, never catching up with anybody. But still, and it seems to be that they're trying to use it as an excuse for why they're not going to have this meeting as of right now. So for me, there's a clear sign that they're trying to delay it, to pretend that they're in the process of negotiations, but well, they're not. The question is how the West will react, and if President Trump will still continue to believe that Putin really wants to make some sort of peace deal, or if he will use the power of the American economy and use the sanctions, the stronger sanctions against Russia, allow the deep strikes into Russia with the American weapons, so that Putin will actually end up in a situation where he will be forced to negotiate. It seems we're in a tactical pause in that regard as of right now. So I think the next week will show how the US administration will move on from here.
Thank you so much for your time. Inna Sovsun, a member of the Ukrainian Parliament in the Holos Party. Thank you so much.